In the carefully staged universe of television, there is an unspoken decree: the set is sacred, a citadel where reality pauses at the door and only the echoes of scripted lives are allowed to breathe. It is a place governed by access lists, radio codes, and the quiet choreography of professionals who know the price of a leak. But what happens when that citadel is crossed not by a fan or a camera-toting interloper, but by another star with a purpose that refuses to fit neatly inside industry rules? What happens when the breach feels less like chaos and more like destiny asserting itself in the brightest possible light? Last night, the entertainment world didn't just refresh a headline, it gasped at a scene that could have been written by the boldest of screenwriters. The central figure was the fearless, incandescent Hazal. The setting, the tightly guarded set of Çağatay Ulusoy's newest project, tucked inside Istanbul's maze of guarded studios and late-night transports, where even the coffee runs are logged. And what unfolded in those charged 15 minutes ignited a blaze of conjecture flashing across phones, private chats, and the hushed corridors of production houses. Welcome back to Turkish Spotlight Secrets, the only vault that opens onto the beating heart of celebrity dynamics. Today, we untangle a moment that dances on the boundary between misstep and magic. We are unpacking the footage, decoding the hearsay, and following the trail toward a rumored gift that some insist is a breadcrumb to a future that these two may already be building together. Before we slip past the velvet rope and step into that restricted zone, a question. Are you here to browse or to understand? If you crave storytelling that looks under the paint and into the wood grain of fame, subscribe to Turkish Spotlight Secrets. And for those who want to keep the lights on while we search for the angles others miss, the join button is ready. Your support lets us linger at the edges of the truth, listening for the line between performance and confession. Now, let's walk through the dark and into the moment that has everyone talking. It happened beneath Istanbul's nocturnal hush, the city that keeps secrets like heirlooms. The set of Çağatay Ulusoy's series is notorious for its security protocols, non-disclosure forms, rotating badges, silent earpieces, the works. In an era when a single spoiler can flatten the arc of an entire season, vigilance is currency. And yet, somehow, Hazal moved through that labyrinth without fanfare. No entourage, no official clearance, just the composed precision of someone who knows exactly where she's headed and exactly who she needs to find. Crew members describe the moment like a glitch in reality. One moment the place was pulsing with lamps and lenses, grips and assistants anticipating the director's next call. The next, Hazal was simply there, crossing lines that usually exist only on call sheets, and doing so with a softness that unraveled suspicion instead of raising it. This wasn't a stunt with photographers lurking in the wings. It was, at least at first glance, a leap of intent. The leaked footage, now circulated across every platform that thrives on urgency, shows Hazal in unvarnished form, not the red carpet icon but a woman with one focus. She scans the organized chaos as if listening for a familiar rhythm, and then her gaze lands, and you can feel the air change. That's the moment that made a million hearts tighten at once. The real Hazal, stepping across a boundary into Çağatay's fictional environment, our eyes catching the intersection where life refused to stay in its lane. In this business, time is counted in slate claps and playback seconds. But those 15 minutes? They're stretching like an eclipse. Eyewitnesses and leaked angles confirm the current running through that encounter. Çağatay, in the middle of a punishing schedule, looked momentarily unmasked. Surprise flashed first, undiluted and human. Before dissolving into a smile so open that people who know him well raised their eyebrows. They moved to a quieter pocket of the set, out of the camera track, near a cluster of cables and marked floor tape. Meanwhile, production staff whispered into headsets, trying to decide whether to stop the world or let it turn. They laughed. They leaned in. They seemed to inhabit a private frequency, the kind shared by people who have been writing their story in tiny messages and stolen looks for longer than outsiders realize. Body language watchers have frozen the frames and parsed every tilt and shift. The angle of her chin when she said something low, the way he instinctively stepped into her words so he could catch them before they disappeared, the shared laughter that created a small, shining circle that the rest of the room could not penetrate. To the cynics, this could be performance. To the romantics, it is the loudest whisper imaginable. And to the crew who saw it in real time, it felt like the truth bubbling up despite everyone's best efforts to keep it contained. As if that weren't enough to keep rumor mills clattering for weeks, another thread has emerged. Sources from within the perimeter murmur that Hazal did not come empty-handed. Before she left as softly as she'd arrived, she is said to have given Çağatay a gift, something small but meaningful. What it was remains the most artful mystery of the day. Was it a memento, a token that anchors a private joke, or a new symbol intended to mark a beginning instead of an end? No one is saying. But what insiders insist exists is footage of his face at the exact second he took it. That clip, they claim, is being held back by the production's higher-ups. Why hide a harmless reaction unless the emotion on his face told more than a press release ever could? Unless the look was the look, the one a person makes when a question they've been carrying quietly finally receives a gentle answer. The energy shift on set was immediate. A director would be justified in fury. An unauthorized entry, a lead actor pulled into something off-script, a fragile schedule wobbling on its axis. Instead, reports describe a sequence both unexpected and revealing. After Hazal slipped away, Çağatay paused for a short breather that looked more like recentering than recovery. When he came back under the lights, he wasn't rattled, he was renewed. The story goes that he called for tea for the crew, a warm nod to the people who keep a set alive, and the room exhaled all at once. A brief, low conversation with the director apparently smoothed the administrative ripples, and the camera rolled on with a lead whose energy was suddenly feeding the whole machine. That's not distraction, that's inspiration. That's muse territory. And the echo carried beyond rap time. Later, in a circle of trust, he allegedly said a sentence that has since been repeated in every backchannel: "Today was a special day for me." Short. Understated. But for someone trained to keep the personal vague, those 5 words were a flare in the night. To grasp the present, you have to read the breadcrumbs they left unwittingly. Our research team here at Turkish Spotlight Secrets pulled clips and quotes that didn't look particularly meaningful until last night reframed them. Remember Hazal's interview a few months back, the one where she spoke softly, choosing care over candor? She said, "Even if I have someone in my life, I don't have to share it with anyone." At the time, it sounded like elegant boundaries. Today, it feels like a veiled confession, protection for a connection that needed shade before it could withstand the sun. And consider Çağatay's digital quiet. Known once for leaving subtle winks to his audience and appearing in the places where the city's pulse ran loudest, he's been quieter lately. Less posting, fewer glimpses into anything offset, more time moving in ways that don't leave footprints. That kind of recoil can mean many things: fatigue, strategy, or something more. There is a theory now, softly spoken but persistent: when a man stops looking over his shoulder to make sure he's being seen, it might be because he prefers to be seen by one particular pair of eyes. Last night's visit could be the moment when the private reason for that public retreat washed briefly into view. This episode leaves the production in a complicated dance. On one side, there's the non-negotiable matter of security. A set is a bank vault of story beats and surprise turns. If one famous person can slip in, what else can slip out? There was a flash of panic in the war room, we're told, when Hazal was first spotted, a bloom of headset chatter and a checklist of worst-case scenarios. But on the other side, the business of storytelling thrives on attention, and attention is currently lining the production's pockets with gold. The season is on air, and the lead's off-screen chemistry writing the headlines is the sort of windfall you can't purchase. So the producers stand on a wire, project corporate concern while feeling the hum of ratings in their bones. Some even speculate that the leak was not an accident at all. Others insist it was a genuine oversight by a tired operator who didn't realize the cameras were still rolling. Which camp are you in? Drop your theories, you know we'll be reading. Predictably, the internet has split itself into rival camps, each speaking with the certainty of believers. One side declares the birth of a power duo, citing the whispering, the unguarded smiles, and that special day line as the trifecta of proof. They're already dreaming up on-screen reunions, picturing promotional tours where the press asks the questions they're all dying to hear answered. The doubters counter with a single refrain, until someone goes on record, it's conjecture wrapped in hope. They say a close friendship can look intimate under fluorescent lights after a long shoot, that affectionate people can be misread in an age that demands receipts. Yet even the skeptics admit the oddness. Why risk the static of a gate crash for a quick hello? Why the covert timing? Why the hush around a small gift? Add to that a whisper from someone near Hazal that drifted into the public square. Hazal is very happy right now. Vague enough to dodge a denial, specific enough to draw lines between dots. And every dot feels like it points to the same place. Perhaps the most intriguing theory is that the visit wasn't spontaneous at all. Those in the inner corridors whisper about days of blue bubbles and late-night jokes, a conversation warming by text until one of them decided to turn words into footsteps. Some suggest a gentle comedy of errors. Hazal intended to catch Çağatay in a private break, not realizing that reset cameras were quietly gathering atmosphere for continuity, inadvertently capturing a moment meant only for two. This version dims the spotlight's severity and brings the story back to something simpler. Two people caught up in the spark of a new connection, making imperfect choices because that's what newness does. It also fits with the murmurs that they met through friends who knew better than to tag each other, that they've been calibrating this closeness away from the noise to see if it can hold steady. For now, the world waits in that electric stillness before official words arrive. Statements are expected, perhaps soon, perhaps after the storm has spun itself out. Will they own the moment or recast it as a misunderstanding? Will they let the image of Hazal stepping into that guarded space stand as a bookmark in their story, or will they scatter the pages and ask us to read something else? Regardless, the picture of her crossing that threshold and him looking up with that startled, unguarded smile has already imprinted itself on the audience's memory. It has the elements we always chase. The forbidden backdrop, the unplanned evidence, the small gift with a large implication, and the chemistry you can't rehearse. Whatever they choose to say, the gossip world will rewatch those 15 minutes until the pixels blur. We'll be here, tracking every hint and every clip that slips into daylight. You've been watching Turkish Spotlight Secrets. If you want to be the first to hear the truth when the truth finally decides to speak, make sure you're subscribed. And if you want to help us keep asking the questions that others leave on the cutting room floor, tap that join button to become a member. Your support is what turns access into insight. Until our next deep dive, keep your gaze fixed on the places where the scripted and the real touch hands. That's where the best stories start, and where this one is just beginning.